What is SMERSH? The short answer is that it's a yoke harness and belt combo developed over the course of decades by the Russian FSB. It's become nothing short of a legend among its users at Milsim events and in Rainbow Six Siege lobbies alike. But what does SMERSH mean? And how do you even say SMERSH anyways? When we started digging, it happened there might be more than one way to say it. If you'd like to skip this portion of the video and get right to the history of the rig, we'll have a timestamp on screen. If you Google SMERSH, you might stumble across this portmanteau from Stalin-era Russia.
Смерть шпионам.
This term was practically coined by Stalin himself, and it means death to spies, an apt name for his counterintelligence operations. So SMERSH isn't an acronym, and it doesn't translate to one singular word in English either. Kind of like RSVP. None of the words in RSVP are in English, and neither are the words in SMERSH. At this point, we asked our industry partner from Russia. After all, he works in the military gear world over there, and he was the brains behind our Gorka suits. He said something entirely different.
СМЕРЧ.
One single Cyrillic character change. Your best FPS Russia accent sprinkled on top, and all of a sudden it's SMERCH instead.
СМЕРЧ можно также перевести на английский как tornado или whirlwind.
So, maybe we've all been pronouncing it wrong in the West. After all, it has precedence being used as a name for a missile truck and a very strange-looking bullpup AK prototype. But hold on. You might be saying there's even Russian places on the internet that spell it SMERSH, and that seems to be what everyone calls it, as it would seem. We're not quite sure from our research what the origin of the name truly is. If any sleuths on the internet have concrete evidence, we'd love to know. To make things easy, we're going to keep saying SMERSH, but you'll see it spelled SMERCH in Cyrillic on our site as a nod to our dear friend from Russia. With that out of the way, let's dive into where this SMERSH came from. During the peak of the Cold War, the USSR tried to pull a US of A and occupy Afghanistan. All of their gear was essentially hand-me-downs from their Great Patriotic War, and it was starting to show its age. Their newly communist friends in China had things pretty figured out, though. Their Chi-Com rigs were a marvel for their time, being some of the first ever proper chest rigs. So the Soviets, either by tactical acquisition from the Mujahideen or eventually making a clone for themselves, ended up with something pretty similar to Chi-Com. Until the fall of the Soviet Union, not much change in terms of their gear, and their invasion of Afghanistan went about as well for them as it did for the USA. Once things were finally getting reorganized for the Russian military, the Federal Security Service, or FSB, began experimenting with belt kit again. A modernized version of the Stalin-era belt kit began to take shape in 1997 from SSO or SPOSN by request from an FSB Alpha member. Seeing its Stalin-era origins and the FSB's ties to the former KGB, it might actually link up to that death to spies agency we talked about earlier. The first iterations of SMERSH were tested and extensively changed by the FSB after use in numerous combat and training exercises. It drew influence from belt kit like the US's M1967 and British PLCE, featuring an iconic butt pack and a yoke-style harness. The Partisan rig, which was a temporary offshoot of SMERSH, had a few minor differences, but it became famous along with the Gorka suit in this image, as well as its appearance during the Belsen school siege during the Second Chechen War. Eventually, SSO SPOSN decided to focus on just the SMERSH. Around the fourth iteration, and with the addition of Alice-like plastic magazine dividers and an improved yoke harness, the SMERSH most people know today was standardized. From there, new pouches for supporting weapon platforms like the PKM, RPK, SVD, and VSS were all made as alternate configurations. It also switched to a slightly more modern nylon construction. This is where the SMERSH gained its legendary status. It's become the object of obsession here in the West, like many Russian items have. But why? Along with the Gorka mountain suit, it appeared in any setting where post-Soviet Russian gear could be found, predominantly in survival and shooter video games. A lot of people got their introduction to the exotic nature of Russian gear through games like the Stalker series, and more recently, Escape from Tarkov. The SMERSH rig would become the it item to have from its appearance in Rainbow Six Siege and DayZ, a game stemming from the Arma series. All the cool kids at the Milsim event had a SMERSH, a Gorka, and an AK. As the internet helped everything spread like wildfire, the stars were aligned at exactly the wrong time.
Major news. After days on a razor's edge, Ukraine is now a nation at war.
It's no secret that the lingering wounds from the USSR haven't been healing. Ukraine has become the primary battleground for Russia in the 2020s. With Russia's invasion in February of 2022, the USA went from just sanctioning Russia to outright raising a new Iron Curtain of trade. SMERSH would become an endangered species. Sure, a few here and there would make it out of Russia, but you'd have to be lucky or rich to get one for yourself. Much like our historical recreations in the past, we didn't want to let SMERSH go extinct, so we got to work. This time, we made sure we didn't pick a country of manufacture that would get sanctioned or embargoed too. After investigating ways to get the real deal stateside or even remake them in another post-Soviet country to no avail, we decided to work with our new friends at Arktis. With decades of experience in making combat webbing and even a prolific chest rig of their own, they cloned the SMERSH and absolutely nailed it. While not compromising the design many know and love, they've also given it a significant quality control upgrade, and even near-infrared fabrics that won't shine like a floodlight under night vision devices. But I'll stop myself before I get into too many details, and I'll let my co-host break down the rig piece by piece if you're not familiar with it. In short, if you loved the original, rest assured, you'll be right at home in our painstaking recreation of it.
We're going to be breaking down the major features of SMERSH here on Model so you can get a better understanding of how it works and what it looks like. Now remember, our SMERSH is complete. Every pouch, including the butt pack, is included. As I'm sure you noticed, this SMERSH is a bit of a different color. That's because this is our first sample known as a material sample. So all the materials are correct, but the colors aren't. The final product is going to have every single material lab dip matched to the original SMERSH. In addition, the end product will be near infrared compliant, so that's a little bit of an upgrade. The first big question is sizing. We tested out SMERSH on multiple different body types. For the waist, it fit everyone from extra small up to double extra large. And then for heights, it fit our short kings and our Giga Chad giants. So basically, it's a one size fits most. Something a lot of people don't think about often is where the pouches go with different size adjustments. Luckily, SMERSH makes it very easy. Regardless of how you have the belt set up, you can find the most comfortable position for your pouches. Lastly, there are several D-rings along the hip that attach to the shoulder harness, depending on your preference or your pouch placement. Now let's move on to the main party piece of SMERSH, the expandable butt pack. It has two places you can mount it, at the hips or a little bit further up in backpack mode. It also has some PALS-ish webbing on the side. Do note the Russian PALs we're working off of are a little bit different than standard MOLLE. Moving back to the front, we have what's called the PPI pouch. Basically, it's just an auxiliary pouch for holding bandages and other small IFAK items. You can mount it on either shoulder strap or anywhere on the waist belt according to your preference. All right, let's move on to the magazine pouches. Now, being Russian, it's made for the AKM, so it fits 2 to 3 30-round AK magazines. If you pad out the bottom of the magazine cell or use a mag assist, it will fit a 30-round STANAG magazine just fine. We've even been able to fit up to 3 if you take out the magazine divider. We did a whole write-up on magazine compatibility on the site, so I encourage you to check that out and give it a read. Of course, these pouches aren't limited to carrying just magazines. With the divider removed and with use of the shock cord, they're great for carrying water bottles, MREs, extra IFAC supplies. You get the idea. Now, these side pouches were originally designed for frag or smoke grenades. Now, unless you're lucky enough to have some, you're probably going to use it with smaller items. GPS or a compass, we fit a little radio in this one. We even managed to cram a cat tourniquet into one of these things. Now, as a final aside, lastly, we have the flare pouch, good for flares, TNT, giant chapsticks, Slim Jims, basically any narrow cylindrical object. And that's pretty much all you need to know. SMERSH is a very versatile belt kit, and we're very excited to get it into your hands.
Hell yeah.
This concludes our look at SMERSH. But if you're part of Commando Pro, you might have already known that. When you sign up for Commando Pro, you'll unlock a lifetime 1% off discount, a bunch of exclusive content and deals in your inbox, and of course, be the first to know about all of our latest projects. So be sure to sign up, follow us on our social media pages, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like content like this. We'll see you next time.